Hi everyone, welcome to Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. Thanks if anybody's come over from Paul's stream, because I was just watching Paul's stream. I didn't realize he was streaming at the same time, but I appreciate it. Yeah, Jurassic Time, I saw you over there. So thanks for joining us. Before we dive into the subject for today, I'm joined by Dave and Thomas. So should we do a wristwatch check? Dave, what are you wearing?
What am I wearing? Let me press my button. Not very professionally. I'm wearing this.
Oh, there we go.
Let me see if I can cut the glare out. There we go. Which is the Glasuta 60s. Is this?
60s
So
panorama.
60s, it's a pretty looking watch.
Oh yeah.
These are seriously underrated as well. So part of the Swatch group kind of gets ignored because they're not Swiss by the Swatch group, it has to be said. But they do some cracking dials. I think this one's from a couple of years back, but you can see the dial there.
I love the
reflection at the moment.
Well, really nice numerals.
Yeah, they're super nice, especially the 12, which you only realise it's actually a 12 when you focus on it, but it kind of looks like more like a bit of scripture. But yeah, they're cracking, and not too. It's pretty thin, pretty wearable, pretty dressy. Really nice straps on them as well. Nice little finishing touches. Even the buckles and stuff are really nice. The pin buckles, nice. But yeah, that's what I'm wearing. It's just a tidy wee thing. I don't wear it very often, but when I do enjoy it, I have to say.
Lovely.
Awesome. Well,
there we go. Yeah. That's what I'm wearing.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't got the date on, so we can't look at it anymore. Thomas, what's your watch?
I'm wearing a TDP01.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Good lad. Good lad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this watch. It's a great one.
And a little secret bit about that. I think you'll find that will not be in the range next year.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that from the AD. So they
that was from the horse's mouth. I heard it, but yeah, they're dropping it next year out of the range. So there's not that. There won't be many of them out there.
No, there's not. It's not that popular watch. A bit of a dog of the range, but I love it. I think it's great.
I know a few people that have got it. Yeah, Luke over at Frog Squad Straps. Not a paid promotion. He's got one and he loves it. I think he's actually might be trying to sell it, so maybe he's fallen out of love with it. But anyway, he did love it. Awesome. Well, Hey everyone. Hey Kevin. Hey William. Bill. Thank you. Jurassic Time. Thanks for joining us, Jack. Thanks everyone for joining us. Well, before we delve into the hot topic of the week, the Anthony Farah situation, why don't both David and Thomas, you went to WatchPro, so should we kick off with that? What did you guys think of it for people that didn't go, or what was it like?
On you go. You go first, Thomas.
Yeah, well, for me, it was a social event. It was more than anything. It was a chance to meet up with a lot of friends that I chat with on YouTube, and to bump into a few YouTubers like Dave, like Andrew Morgan from Talking Hands and Watchfinder. The Mad Watch Collector was there. Meet up with a few people, check out the watches, some good independent brands there. Startup brands had only been going a year. A nice Czechoslovakian brand called Robot, which I really liked. Meet up with a few other people that I know, Albert from Zywinkle, Jose from Isotope. And I love the Zinn watches. The Zinn brand has some great stuff. The Easy M12 mission timer, that was a great favourite of mine. I absolutely loved that one. Yeah. And then they had a secondary floor with an eBay floor with a lot of grey market dealers selling the usual sort of Rolex stuff, and got a bit boring that. But there was a nice auction stand, an auction house from London. Had a lot of vintage stuff, which was quite nice. Some IWC Mark 11s, and what else did they have? A nice Blancpain Aqualung, and some nice stuff. So it's a good variety of stuff. Yeah, accessories and watches, vintage and new micro brands, independents, bit of low tier stuff, bit of mid tier stuff, and then the expensive stuff upstairs.
Yeah.
So and some great talks as well. Some really good talks put on. Dave did his whiskies from around the world talk, which was great, and yeah, lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's always difficult. These, I guess, ultimately, it is probably the biggest show in the UK. I'd probably say it is, but it's very much a regional show. You know, that's the problem. The UK's for a long time struggled to do what you might call a kind of industry-wide show. And the last time was really probably back a good few years when QP used to do QP Salon. And that was the last time that there was what I would regard as a pretty top to bottom industry show in the UK. But it fell apart along with QP Magazine. You know, print magazines, it's tougher and tougher for those guys. And QP Magazine fell by the wayside and the show fell with it. And then there was nothing for a couple of years, and the guys at WatchPro, which very much was a trade-orientated publication initially. You know, it was very much aimed at the retailers and the ADs themselves, rather than as a kind of public-facing publication. And in the last couple of years, they've definitely opened it up and become certainly more of a public-facing, less of that kind of trade industry information. Still a little bit of it, but very much kind of trying to break into the wider public market. And they decided to do the show. And first year was a wee bit ropey around the edges. You would expect that though the first time round. And they actually seemed to be getting a little bit of traction. Like they got Grand Seiko and they got a few other kind of like, you know, well-known high street brand names get involved with it. I felt this year it was a bit softer again. You know, like Seiko were there, but Grand Seiko weren't.
Yeah.
There was a few other brands that have been there for the last few years that were missing, like Doxa, Maurice Lacroix, some of the German brands like Mula Glasuta, they were missing. There was, you know, as you said, Thomas, Zinn were there. Zinn do tend to be pretty good at supporting these smaller shows. You know, people forget Zinn's not as big a brand as people think they are. I think they've got a bigger name within the collecting community than they actually are as a brand. They're big in Germany, don't get me wrong. Outside Germany, definitely not so big. You had the small ones you would expect. You would have your Isotope was there. Obviously, Mike Pearson came over with Zodiac, so they were again probably arguably one of the more punchy stands. And then lots of little bands like you had Arconaut who were there for the first time, and you had Robot, and you had Brooklyn's. You know, a lot of these really small, almost like niche boutique type brands or micro brands, so to speak. And you did have Chapek there, albeit it wasn't Chapek, it was the guy that deals with the UK distribution of it. So he had obviously his kind of house of wares there as well. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Pardon me. And so there was some interesting stuff to see for sure, but there definitely wasn't enough that would attract the less die-hard watch geek to that show, to be honest. They did put that second floor in with pre-owned. eBay kind of led that whole agenda. Wasn't my vibe, to be honest. I'm not a big pre-owned type person anyway, so it's not really my vibe. But I went up. They did seem to get a bit of attention because they were doing like a kind of tombolo. They had one of these hook grab machines, and you got your ticket. If you got your ticket, they gave away, I think, 5 or 6 watches over the 2 days. So, you know, that wasn't too bad. There was like some Speedies, there was some Cartier, there was a few interesting things. And you know, from watching it, it was quite interesting. There was, you know, it definitely wasn't fixed because I think at one point there was one of the hotel staff, the waiting staff, who'd had a go in it on their break and got a ticket, and they won something, and some folk that people know from the industry won something. So it literally was. I think on 2 occasions I was 2 numbers out on one and 1 number out on the other, which was somewhat frustrating. But you know, hey, that's the way these cookie crumbles. And as you say, Thomas, the talks were really good. Actually, there was what was the best one? I think possibly the best one was there was a women's panel. There was Tracy Llewellyn, there was Kathleen McGivney, there was Cecilia Watson, and that's terrible, her name's escaped me, the lady that runs the Watch Time show in the US. She was over, and that was actually a great panel. Good audience, probably 65% men, something like that, 45% women. So unlike a lot of watch orientated stuff where, you know, it's, let's be honest, it's predominantly, sadly, a male orientated domain, this had a much wider, better kind of group of people, and that was a really good conversation. And it definitely wasn't about having a go, it was more about what can be done to effectively, what can the industry do to make it more accessible for women? And that was a great one. That one, RJ from Fratello came over. He did a bit about how to run a watch magazine or a watch blog type website magazine type scenario, which was pretty interesting as well. So that side of it's really good. And I think you summed it up, Thomas. It's a social event.
Yeah.
My big worry is that probably don't pay the bills, and it needs to pay the bills if it wants to happen again. And that, sadly, I really, really hope it carries on, because it is a great social event. But as you say, that's a struggle if it's just the same people going to meet up with their mates to talk about watches. The brands ain't going to put their hand in their pocket and go next year, which could be challenging.
Can be quite expensive to exhibit at these shows, can't it? Yeah.
I mean, sadly, it's that combination, isn't it? It's held in a beautiful hotel. It's like probably one of the most premium hotels in London, the Londoner, right in the centre. It's a super nice hotel. It definitely won't be cheap to rent that place for the weekend. That is for goddamn sure. That's going to cost an arm and a leg. But you can't do it somewhere cheap, because you won't have the security, you won't have the ambience. You'll not get the brands to come if it's not the right atmosphere and vibe. You can't win, and if you want that, it costs money. And if punters aren't willing to pay for tickets, which, let's be honest, most folk there, or a high number of people there, I know, got their free tickets through somebody. So again, there's the only money that's coming in is the brands that want to pay for it, which is a bit sad. But then the brands, if they don't get the return on it, they won't pay for it. It's a catch-22.
Yeah, big shout out to Rob Corder from WatchPro for putting it on, and Lucy Cheesewright for organising it as well.
Yeah,
she did
absolutely, and
she does great.
This is her last year as well. She's done it since the start, and this is her last year, because she's moving on to do her own kind of event company and stuff. Yeah,
that's cool. Oh, awesome! Yeah,
I think Jack said there the Intersect was on in the US that weekend. Which is actually again, a cool little kind of, it's a strange setup. I think that one, it's, if I remember rightly, I think it might be a retailer that runs it but invites other brands along. It's a bit of a kind of strange way it's done, but it seems to be working.
Yeah, exactly. I think the old boys at Jack Mason were at the Intersect as well. I'm still doing the review of this. I interviewed Peter, their one of their founders, the other day. I'm just trying to edit the interview together. Fascinating brand. That was the one like at Wind Up that was actually good for them to go to Wind Up, because I never knew about the brand. It was one of those where, but yeah, we digress here.
Someone's making an interesting comment. Do I bite?
This is do you want me to? This is the last comment, Anonymous. Anonymous. Yeah, so he's actually my first ever subscriber. So thank you for watching it live. He watched it when I was doing like 5 subs. So he says, what can the industry do? He always keeps me grounded. So this might be one of these. What can the industry do to appeal to women? What nonsense? What can the makeup industry do to appeal to more men? Nothing for both. People have their interests, and nonsense of inclusivity. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that, but
no, I think so. What I'd say is he's right in one hand, right? I think if you're into something, hard into it, it doesn't really matter. I've got plenty of women friends that are proper just as into watches as I am, and they will go to stuff. But if you genuinely look at the industry in general, it's things like if you look, ladies' watches, just as an example, you've got dive watches, you've got sports watches, you've got aviation watches, you've got tool watches, and you've got ladies' watches. You don't get men's watches, right? This ladies' watch thing is just nonsense. It's like, and most women I know, especially if they're actually into watches, will buy what the industry calls men's watches.
Yeah.
It's not about the individuals. And most of us who are into watches don't give a toss whether you're male, female, what colour you are, what ethnicity you are, any of these things. That's irrelevant, because you're kind of heavy geeky into it. But if you think about the bigger picture of the average person, it isn't the most inclusive. And it's not just about men and women, it's about the wider sphere of people as well. It is a very white male dominated industry of a certain age, usually a little bit older as well, typically kind of 30 something into the older ages. And the interesting point that was made about some of the US shows, and I think this is absolutely true about the US shows, they've done a great job of attracting a much younger audience. You see a lot more 20 somethings, 30 somethings, and that's not typical of most watch events. And it's done a better job of just kind of making it a neutral venue. It'll never be perfect, but to deny that there is a male bias within watches, I mean, I do enough events, I do enough red bar events and all these things to know that if all things were equal, I think there is as many women into watches as men and out there. You do a red bar event, I guarantee you, or you do any watch club event, I guarantee you the vast majority will be males.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah,
and the companies that have marketed specifically at female have been rewarded for it, haven't they? Like Cartier, a Rolex. Apparently, the biggest selling Rolex is the ladies' date, the smaller size, the 26mm Datejust. You always hear that, don't you?
Yeah, and I don't think it's not like one of the points they brought up was there is product that probably will predominantly be orientated towards a female audience. You know, we're not saying, oh, don't do diamond watches, don't do ladies' watches. There is absolutely an audience for that type of thing. That's for sure. And it's not about, you know, people think it's like, oh, people are trying to generate a narrative. Oh, it's very woke. It's very this. It's very that. It isn't. It is actually. I guarantee you, it's an absolute reality. I wish. I have specifically had women talk to me privately and said, "I'd love to come to that event. I just feel I don't want to walk into an environment that's just very masculine."
Yeah.
And they say, "What can I do?" I can't. I've not got the answer because I'm part of that. I'm like, I can't change that, you know. So it does happen, and it was the panel was interesting in terms of how they thought it could change, and they weren't going, "Oh, it's all the guys' fault. Oh, guys need to change. Guys need to change." They basically said everyone we're talking to in this room is already we're preaching to the converted. It's more about what happens at the top. But who knows? I don't know the answer to it. I'm no social engineer. I just think it would be nice if there was more spread of people in it, because I just think it is, you know. And
the rising
free.
tide.
Yeah, you're perfectly free to disagree. You know, I'm not here to police what people do or don't do. That's up to everyone else. I'm not your social conscience or your moral obligation. But personally, I think it was quite interesting, and I would like to see more of a mix of everybody. To be fair in it.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I actually totally agree with you. Okay, let's dive into the kind of the main topic for today, and that is that this week, this is where obviously there's been some drama going on with Timepiece Gentleman, but it seems to be kept within our bubble, didn't it, for a long time, that it was within the watch community. There was, and then when Anthony came out and admitted that I think he was 5 million in debt, then it started to blur the lines between, wow, this isn't just somebody flexing their watches and somebody that's got a little bit over the head with owing people money, but this could lead to a criminal investigation. And it seems now that that's the case. It seems like the FBI has actually arrested him now, and he's currently, as far as anyone can tell, he's still currently incarcerated, and it's now hit the mainstream big time. So we saw articles in the Los Angeles Times. There was one on the Daily Mail. The New York Times as well covered it. So this is serious now, isn't it? This is not just.
Yeah, I mean, it's allegedly pretty big numbers, isn't it? You know, I can't remember exactly. Was it 3 million? I think they said something of that.
Yeah, I mean, he said 5, didn't he, that he owed? But it looks like they at least sounds like they can prove 3 of that.
Yeah,
I mean, on the video, he said he's 5 million in debt, didn't he? You know, the video that you put out on his channel. But they're now saying it's 5 million charged with wire fraud. So that's what they're calling it, and 5 million
Yeah.
in debt. So
I mean, to be fair, if you look subjectively at it and you take a step back from it, you just knew it didn't feel good from a lot long ago. There was nothing kind of good about anything that felt about it. You didn't really know. I guess that pre-owned watch world, there's a murkiness to it. Not to say they're all the same, because they're not, and there's absolutely good pre-owned dealers out there, and there's perfectly legitimate, pre-owned business. But this whole celebrity narrative mixed into lifestyle, mixed into high value pre-owned watches, because most of what this guy was flexing was the very upper echelons, high price points. It was the fast cars, it was the fast meals, it was the look at my amazing life. Then it was the throw the sob story of this happened, that happened, and it's like living your life out as some effectively massive soap opera online. Rarely do these things go well or are all they seem. And I follow these things loosely. I'm not a big fan, to be honest, of reality TV and all of that kind of narrative. But when you look at it from just even one step back, you're like, yeah, something's not going to end well here.
Yeah, he was riding when he first started out. I really enjoyed the content when he was doing the Timepiece Gentleman with Marco, and he seemed to really be. They seemed to be having a good time. They looked like they were building a business. They were out of that little office. They had a lot of watches and so on. And I feel like I always had the sense that he'd invested a lot of money in having it filmed as if it was a Netflix documentary, because that's what the hope was, that it would become a Netflix kind of show. And I wonder whether he just kept at that. I know a lot of people are speculating that his original intent allegedly might have been this scheme, but and maybe I'm just naive and looking at the positive of this. I think he started out with good intentions, and then he just he came to LA, and he didn't have Marco to kind of. I don't know if Marco kept the reins, but he didn't have that other person to kind of be answerable to, and then he just got like way over his head. Because I think Jack mentioned it before about a lot of people going to LA, but that's it. It'll consume that lifestyle big time. If you got.
I think I tend to broadly agree with you. I don't think. I don't know the guy, so this is me just a bit of supposition.
On our part.
Someone said, "Oh, the Bernie Madoff of the watch world. He ain't no Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff did it right. He just got caught. He was a whole different level of complicity. This guy, I think you're right. I think he probably thought watches, lifestyle, get a bit of notoriety, make a bit of money, play a bit loose and rough around the edges and see what happens type thing. I don't think there was any grand plan to commit wire fraud and do folk out of millions of quid. And I think basically, what you mentioned, he got in over his head, and then it was that. Well, maybe I can just like sell that one and keep the money a little bit longer than I would want to, and pay that debt to get this guy off my back. And then, that guy didn't shout too much about where's my money, so I'll keep that a bit longer. I'm in a bit more trouble. I'll use that here. And before you know it, he was like, all right, I've none of that money left. Oh crap, I better sell that to do that. And it just spiraled out of control. I think it doesn't strike me as the sharpest tool in the box when it comes to, if you're a good criminal, you don't get caught.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's usually one or two things that end up bringing the house down. But you're right. If he'd originally set off as this criminal mastermind to kill this Ponzi scheme, the worst thing he could have done was filmed every single second of his life, because it's the evidence that. And I guess that's why he was arrested so quick, because the evidence, especially when he's gone on these live streams to defend himself and openly admit in a public forum that he owes these people money, and that, talking about, because I think what will really get him is when he gave that watch as payment, but it was a watch that he hadn't paid for.
Somebody
That's like the
else's,
wire
yeah.
fraud, isn't it? And if it went across state lines, then that's a big deal, which it sounded like it did.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think he get in over his head, and my gut tells me he's not clever enough to realise what he's actually done. And I know that sounds bad, but he's actually, on paper, you're like, oh, this guy might have something. He's kind of done this and got to here. I think that's just by happen chance. I think it was just desperation, and he ended up basically royally in the poo-poo, and he published it. He's pretty much all the evidence he's damned himself with. He's done it to himself. That's not the sign of a criminal mastermind. It's criminal, sure. He's an idiot, and I feel sorry for lots of people have been pulled out of it. But then, to me as well, if you've got watches like that and you put them on consignment, do you not do a serious amount of due diligence before you just hand over your 50 grand or 70 grand or 300 grand watch and just think, oh, look at this guy running about the internet, flashy cars, flashy meals. Oh, here, have my 300 grand watch and pay me when you've sold it.
Yeah, that is definitely the. He became a micro celebrity. I don't know if that's a proper word. I'm making it up, but he became a celebrity within the watch world, didn't he? So you can see how people were he's a good looking guy. People were attracted to that kind of, because watches are all about the status, weren't they? And he certainly embodied that. Hey, I'm early 30s. I've got the Lambo. I've got a nice watch. I'm athletically fit. I'm good looking, and I think maybe that kind of thing can intoxicate people into doing, silly things with their money. But
as much as like all the whole YouTube thing, I don't think that's necessarily the fame for him. Probably was more he did that, and when he was in his social circle out in the town, in the city, getting into the nice restaurants, flashing the cash, driving up, people seeing him, going out on a night up, talking to folk when they're out and saying, I'm this guy, I do this, I've got that, look at the money I've got, look what I can buy, I'll buy the drinks, I'll buy the food. That whole narrative, I think it's as much as that, and it's just narcissism at the end of the day, isn't it, really? It's just that, or toxic narcissism at that. Everyone's got a bit of narcissistic in them. The difference is he probably didn't realise it.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I did. Sorry, Thomas, cut you off there. But I happened when I live in Florida now. So hello to the Miami guy. Sorry, forgot who you were. But when I lived in California, I lived within easy driving distance of LA, and there was a couple of times I went to those parties and stuff, and you meet the actors and the actresses, and they're always like, oh, I'm working on an independent project. Oh, have I seen you in anything? Oh, I'm working on an independent project. So I can imagine that once you get to these parties and everything, because they'll ask you what you do straight, oh, what do you do? What, that's like the second question before you even ask your name usually is what do you do? But that's the kind of lifestyle. So yeah, Davey, I can imagine that once you're in that, and also I'm guessing that in Dallas, was it Dallas he originally started? There's some extremely rich people in Dallas, like extreme, the oil money and everything, extremely rich. So he probably was more, more of an average person there. But you go to LA and you live in the lifestyle, and they had an office on Rodeo Drive and stuff, didn't they, as well, which must have cost an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
And that penthouse that he got was just, I think that was first when I sort of realized, wow, this is way over. So first of all, like nobody that I don't know, the center of LA, the downtown bit is not that nice. It is not a nice area of LA. Around Silver Lake and all around the perimeters, like West Hollywood and all that, gorgeous. But he was like, it looked like he was bang right in the center of the actual, which is a it's a business district. So to have that apartment that he was spending an absolute fortune for and stuff, but
it almost strikes me as like a low rent version of Wolf of Wall Street, like Wolf of Rodeo Drive. It's just like someone who's a bit wide, a bit full of himself, like chucked himself out there, got going, and then suddenly was like, oh, actually, I'm getting away with this. And the more you get away with it, the more you push it, the worse it gets. Before you know it, you're in over your head. Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
The only difference between him and Wolf of Wall Street is YouTube didn't exist when he was on it, because I could imagine that if it did, he would have probably done exactly the same. He just was lucky that he didn't get the notoriety until after the fact.
Yeah, well, he is. I forget the name of the guy, but he's certainly on YouTube these days, isn't he? The guy, I forgot the name of the guy.
Exactly. You know, can you imagine? He probably wouldn't have got to where he is now, because he would have probably done exactly the same. He's like, got this great idea, guys.
Well, and that is what YouTube. Yeah, because what YouTube is by its nature it's unregulated, which is what
100%. Yeah.
Which benefits us all, of course. But there's certainly, you had to have a bit of healthy skepticism there. I mean, I wonder whether how it works with his because there will be co-conspirators, weren't there? Because there was definitely people who were part of the business, but that I think that's a bit more of a leap that you would have to prove that they had.
I think you would need to probably prove that they benefited from it, and they had tacit knowledge of it.
Yeah,
and,
Jordan Belfort.
Yeah,
well,
Jordan Belfort.
Liz and Darby, who is cameraman and sound people, they took off and went off and copied his format in selling watches on consignment, and I think he paid for them to be quiet, to silence them. It was
I mean, obviously allegedly,
I was going to say, or more accurately, if indeed they were paid to be silenced, he paid them with other people's money. To be fair,
yeah. But I was just going to say, I mean, this whole people seem to love a soap opera on YouTube, you know, and that's what it turned into. It turned into a soap opera with him, with the penthouse, with the meals, with the fast cars, with the glamorous watches, and him being good looking, like you say. And do you think it was him trying to maybe evolve it into people have said maybe a Netflix?
I do.
Netflix series.
I think there was. I think ultimately it was just a classic case of an opportunist. He just looked at a few things and thought, a fast way to fast cash. You know, watches, cars, meals. YouTube was a medium. Whether he sold the business for money, whatever it was, I think he was just looking for. It was kind of like throw it out there and see what stuck. Basically, as he was fame hunting at the end of the day to some degree, or a combination of fame and money, and that kind of toxic. You know, to me, that's like the toxic end of kind of capitalism, where it's just like there's this thing that you just do whatever you have to do to get money and fame, and it's like any system, isn't it? You know, like if you take something to the extreme, it's usually not great.
Yeah, kind of fake it till you make it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting how this plays out, because this is like big time now, isn't it? The financial crimes, and as Anonymous said, the money crossing state lines is a big deal, because you know it's certainly the former President Trump. I mean, the real sticky situation for him is not the document stuff. It's him overflating his in businesses and stuff like that. The financial crimes in the US are certainly seen certainly more detrimental to, you get like SBF was, FTX was just done. I mean, they think at the minimum he'll get 50 years. And that was somebody else who just thought that they were, the market was going up, and they thought they were the gift of, he thought it was the gift of crypto.
And like I was, I guess, saying, it's to me, like one of the beauties of especially the US capitalist system is anybody with a bit of application and an idea can potentially make some money. But Europe's so heavily regulated financially, certainly compared to the US when it comes to that. Yes, you get things like credit. Well, that's Switzerland, isn't it? Credit Suisse, that's a whole different world. But the UK, for example, it's pretty tough to do something like that, because if you will get caught quite quickly, because you just can't do stuff like that as easily. You can do it, but not as easily. I think the US system, just by its very nature, encourages people to make a lot of money, and people will take shortcuts to try and make it if they see that there's something that looks like a shortcut. the vast majority of people, of course, don't, but it does leave it open to something like that. You know, Trump's a prime example of it at the very opposite end of the scale, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
it's
crime
gonna
piece gentleman.
and the cranky. I mean, that he was asking for it. It was. Do you know what? I had a mischievous thought. I had a mischievous thought, thinking, "Wow, I wonder how much, if he is still selling the merch, whether they've seen a spike in merch. You know, since because you know what people are like, aren't they? They would look just to buy the Timepiece Gentleman merch because I mean, the thing was, I know when he went on JJ's podcast, JJ's live stream, JJ's hangout, which he did the best. He managed to get Anthony on. He got all of the. He did the best assembling all the parts and all the players, and he, you know, he's a fantastic interviewer the way that he did it. And Anthony was coming on then, and you felt that he genuinely was trying to pay the money back. I felt that. I mean, it was farcical, wasn't it? Because to pay back 5 million in even a year or something like that. I mean, you can't work a day job, even if you're in the the tech industry. You know, I mean, unless you're the CEO of a major company, 5 million a year is it's most people. I guess 99% of people would never see that in their entire lives, let alone
99.999% of people will never see that in their life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you've really got to.
I mean, he got in over his head, didn't he? At the end of the day, he's a silly sausage, as my mother would say. You know, he got himself in the deep end without any water wings.
Yeah, and he definitely. John at Tea and Tickers was asking me before, saying that he thinks that he still had a Lamborghini left, and why would he still have a Lamborghini left? And it occurred to me that perhaps some of the stuff, the toys that he has got left, if he'd leased them, if he's leased a Lambo, and say it was 200 and now it's worth 150, he can't end that lease. I mean, the leasing company would be like, "Where's the the money for the?"
Yeah, of course, you never know, but the probability of any of those cars being owned by him are almost nil. You know, they'll all be either leased or short-term contract or lease hire or something of that ilk. You know, because again, just buying some of those toys that he had would have bankrupted most people.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, as well, we'll do a bit of a Q&A because we kind of rattle through that topic quite quick. Because if anybody's got any questions for anyone on the panel, keep them coming in the chat. But yeah, I will say, unfortunately, this is really not looking good for him legally, is it? Because he's not.
He's been denied bail now, hasn't he? And
He was on probation as well, wasn't he? For like a couple of. He had 6 DUIs or something.
Yeah.
Denied bail in the US. That's saying something, isn't it? You know, like. Trump seems to be able to have bail, so he's a bad boy.
Got a bit of a drinking problem.
I mean, say he gets I've heard the number 20 years bounded about. You know, that he'll get 20 years or so. I mean, after that, he could make money with a Netflix series if he comes out. He could.
Yeah, and I mean, he has got children. I think he's got a young son as well. So that's really.
Yeah. Well, you know, he might actually see us all out by doing a Jason Belfort, you know, and actually do his time and come out. But the difference is, I don't think he's got the same charisma as he had. You know, maybe who knows.
Yeah, and I mean, I know because when they split off, they started the Grand Caliber thing, didn't they? And put Marco. I mean, I spoke to him on the phone, and their stuff is so dull. Like, I think that might be the It was kind of, Anthony was the face of that operation, I think. But anyway, so yeah, any questions for the panel? I'll ask one. Did anyone see that the Rolex from Apocalypse Now went for auction? I don't know if anybody follows this.
Marlon Brando's.
Yeah, yes, the famous one without the bezel.
Without the bezel.
Yeah. Because it's the one iconic movie watch that I don't think people talk about because it's so haunting at the end, isn't it, with Marlon Brando?
Yeah,
I know.
Is it actually? What did it go for in the end?
It looks like it went for 4.58 million Swiss francs.
Wow.
Because I kind of half read about this one, but I also was reading what was it? I think it was at the Christie's auction as well, where there was a whole hoo-ha right towards the very start of the auction, where they had published the books with all of the values as well, or proposed kind of a bidding range. And suddenly it get held because somebody come in. It's very rarely happened in the watch world before, but it happens quite commonly in the art world, where effectively a client underwrites the entire auction. And this caused a bit of hoo-ha because it's the first time that it's happened to any. The first time it's happened in this scale, certainly in the watch industry, but it's very commonplace within the art world as well. And it apparently, they believe, seriously boosted some of the values of some of the stuff that went. So it's interesting to see, that it happens in the art world because of the nature of people believing that art is an investment class. And how long have we heard watches are investment, and everyone kind of goes, okay, whatever. But this is the first sign that maybe that's actually beginning to happen at some level.
Yeah. So what do you mean by that, Dave? Underwriting it? You mean they say, if you get a minimum bid, I'll buy it all, or?
Yeah, effectively they get a client that says, okay, for these pieces, I will pay this type thing, and they agree between the seller, the auction house, and this individual. They agree an amount, and if it doesn't make that amount, that person says, I'll buy it at that. So typically, like a bit like, you would know at auction, you can put a reserve in and say, if it doesn't hit this, it doesn't sell. But this guy kind of effectively says, okay, let's say this is projected to sell between 40 and 70,000. This guy says, I will guarantee 60 on that piece. I'll guarantee all these values. And then, of course, that then effectively becomes the starting point, doesn't it? So if they've said, okay, this watch is due to sell between, let's say, 40 and 70, and this guy guarantees 60, legally then they have to set 60 as the start point. So they have to move all the values up. And it's a bit murky for sure, because if you have an auction book and you've been doing your research on a specific piece and it says it'll sell between 20 and 40, and you've said to yourself, okay, I think I'll have a go at this, and suddenly some guy underwrites it at 40 and it then goes to 40 to 80, you've just basically screwed your entire research piece up, and you're just probably blown straight out the park, and it happens in art. But the fact that this one happened literally on the bell of the auction start, and I think in fact the auction started like 20 minutes or 40 minutes late, something like that, because they were still hammering the negotiation out on this deal as the auction was going to start. Pretty ropey way to do business, it has to be said. It's like getting gazumped in a house, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wild as well. It says here as well that because I remember this being for auction before, and it said 4 years ago it went for 1.95 million. So it's quite a. I wonder whether I know Omega bid on their own watches, don't they? Sometimes on auction. Well, obviously they got screwed, but
probably not doing that. Probably not doing that so much at the moment.
No. But I wonder whether Rolex actually have an archive of famous ones, because this. I'm trying to think if there was a more. This is a very famous. But having said that, it is a damaged, I suppose. If they serviced it, they might put a bezel back on it. But
I think possibly I read that it was reported that Rolex had not bid on this watch.
Oh, really?
You think they would do? Yeah.
No, I think they have for sure. I'm sure they've bought watches at auction before for their collection stuff, but apparently they did not bid on this one.
Yeah, I wonder why. Maybe because it's not a.
Maybe they know something that the auction house doesn't.
Oh yeah. And then it looks like there was the same auction. There was this Cartier bamboo. That's crazy looking, isn't it?
Yeah, these are quite funky, to be fair. Not at that money, but these are a wee bit different for sure.
Yeah, and then the Cartier dice. Awesome.
Yeah, dice is the one up with the 4 dots, isn't it?
Oh, this is the. Oh, of course.
That's a dice there. Yeah, that's your dice.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Sorry. And then this is the bamboo. Oh, that makes sense, because it looks a bit like bamboo. Oh wow. Yeah. It's it's an interesting old game, the auctions, isn't it? I wonder how they'll fare.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did. What was the other auction one that popped up that just made me chuckle? Obviously, the whole Only Watch thing being pulled and cancelled. Not quite, but relatively speaking, at the last minute. I think it was maybe a weekend, 10 days out, and then on the auction house's Instagram account, I think they said 24 hours to go because they'd still lined up their posts. They put the post after it had been cancelled to say time is ticking down to the start of the auction, and you're just like, oh my god. And then Patek, of course, we're going to be releasing a piece unique for Stern's celebratory anniversary type thing, and it got released. Well, I think they were doing 30 pieces plus a piece unique of it, and the 30 pieces were released yesterday, I think it was. And
awful,
oh my, it is truly horrific.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's got.
It's as bad as you could possibly imagine. I mean, if it was on kind of like
it's a million
real kind of
a minute repeater, and it just looks awful.
Is it this? Is it? Oh dear. Oh. Is it this thing?
Yeah,
that's the one.
That's the one.
I don't know if you can zoom up in the picture, if you can bring it bigger. I mean,
I wonder if I can find a better picture of it, because that one won't let me click on it. Oh, here's Hodinkey will have a good picture.
Yeah, see if they've got a good front on it. I mean, technically, absolutely outstanding. I'm not going to knock it from that perspective, but it's even the fact that if you notice, the 6 is kind of gone because the picture comes all the way down through the sub-second.
Oh, yeah.
It's just awful.
That's very weird, isn't it? Yeah.
It's got an engraved case back. It's like a kind of hunter-style pop-open case back as well. It just... Why?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, awful.
And then
that dial. Imagine having him staring at you every time you look at the time. They should have made one and given it to him. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I know Newmass, who's always teasing me that Mike France is my dad. He's asking, is there any news from Mike France? Well, the best news from Christopher Ward, isn't it? They actually won the old first British watch brand to win that category, or first to win?
I think it might be the first. Oh, it's good. I think it might be the first. Has Roger Smith ever won anything? Not sure.
Not for Petit Gris. No, I don't think so. No.
Not in this category. They might. I'm not sure if he's won anything GPHG, but certainly, I think certainly one of the very first British brands, to be fair, that has broken through the Swiss stranglehold.
Yeah,
Japanese have obviously had the odd win.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Christopher. Oh yeah, let's see if Microbrand Watch World might have said it. Christopher Ward's. Yeah, it just an incredible achievement by them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a few folk, I think most folk had a little bit of hope that they might do pretty well, but I think a few folk had their kind of little tick against something else that they thought would win, and I think this was a deserved winner for sure, but maybe not the one that they thought was going to win.
Yeah, there's a great picture of let me see if it's on Christopher Ward's website. There's a great picture of Mike France. I don't think anybody could look happier than the pride in his face is absolutely amazing. I need to see if I can find I don't know whether they've done a write-up yet on their hang on. Maybe it is on this front page. Let me just wait for it to cycle back round. But yeah, they did it's I think they might have done a write-up on that. I know they sent me a press release on it, but let me just see if I can. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Oh no, it's. I was hoping that would link to it, but it just links to there.
We've won. Buy a watch.
Yeah, that was it. It was the Bel Canto won the Petit Agui category of Grand. Oh dear, but yes. So I thought it was going to lead to it, but it's like, oh, buy here.
That's how to do business properly. Look, we won. Click here. Oh, buy a watch.
Like Hodinkey. We've done a legitimate review of this watch.
Yeah. Proper clickbait, that is.
I did like the Louis Arada Constantin Shaken regulator, but I
think most folk, Thomas, thought that was going to win.
Yeah, but I think the Belcanto Fritz movement. I think it is valid winner.
I think it was a really simple and clever way to add what is more commonly regarded as a reasonably high-end complication, rarely seen as well, into a very attainable price point. Don't get me wrong, it ain't no minute repeater, but it gives just that general vibe, a chiming watch, which is pretty rare, full stop, but certainly at this price point, and doing something in such a kind of left field design. It's definitely got little MB&F type vibes, wee bit kind of high end, independent, high horology vibe to it at a really attainable price point. So it's a really solid watch, I think.
Yeah. I had a comment on my YouTube, video. I think it was the last one I did, where I did it on their new moon phase, when it's like, oh, this is ridiculous. This is just a direct rip off of Meister Singer's watch. Are they paying Meister Singer to rip off their movement? And I just replied back to the person saying, just look up who makes Meister Singer's watches.
I was going to say, it's the classic internet in it, where they're just like, oh my god, look what they've done. Oh yeah, you maybe want to research even just like 2 lines below where you got to.
Yes, yeah, and then here we go. So yeah, at least I inherited the family hairline. Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, that was
hair, Sam.
Oh, there is some there.
There's some hair there.
I'm just keeping it short. Yeah. So, if any more questions come through, somebody's plugging Boston Watch Collectors plug-in Tim Wright stream on the channel.
I must plug the last Scottish Watches video with Chrome Caliber, Carl from Chrome Caliber.
Oh right,
such a cool little product, that, isn't it?
His Retrobot, I absolutely love it. I know Carl personally, and the Retrobot is such a cool product. It's a watch winder and shape of a robot. So check out the last Scottish Watches.
Yeah, I have not. I've not seen it. Well, the episode I did with Ricky, I was too ugly for them to make it onto a video. So, here we go.
That's it.
There we go. The best watch toy ever. Plus, oh yeah, definitely.
It's super nice quality. In fact, I think I've got one floating up there. That kind of, I think it was 1970s tin toy, wasn't it? That kind of classic robot, and he's just done a really nice version of it. But it's a really good quality. I think the watch winder in it that he's kind of incorporated into it is something like 700 quid of its own right. So
good for the cubic watch winder itself. Yeah.
Super premium in there, and I genuinely, it's so cool. I really hope it works, because I think it goes live in Kickstarter. Is that right? Is he doing 5 colours and he's doing 100 pieces of each? I think something like that. Yeah.
If we got is the link in the? Let me just see if Ricky put the link. He usually is quite good at putting the links in the thing. But
it goes to. I'm not sure if it's live yet in Kickstarter, but it might be coming up soon. The campaign.
What's the name of it? It's
Chrome Caliber.
Chrome Caliber. Yeah, watchwinder. I think it's a lot of money for it. But your good watchwinders are not cheap, and the fact that this is a 700 quid one that's then built into this, I think it's kind of going to be pushing on Kickstarter for 1,200-1,300, something of that ilk.
Yeah,
and obviously in this day and age, that's a punchy amount of money for a watchwinder for anybody. It's an amazingly cool bit of kit, to be honest. But I really genuinely hope it works for him, but I think it could be at this market, it could be a tight one.
Yeah. So Dave, are you going to Dubai Watch Week, or is Ricky's going for sure, isn't he? But you going?
No, yeah, we both fly out together on Wednesday.
Oh wow, yeah, because Mark is already there, isn't he?
He is. He's there, and obviously Ralph's out there. He lives out there anyway, so there'll be a gang of us out there.
And is there anything that I know you're back to back, aren't you? Interviews and stuff, but is there anything that you're particularly excited about seeing there?
There's obviously MB&F are launching a new watch, which is getting launched there, which is for that specific market. That launches this week, in fact, coming. So it's getting launched there. So love them, loathe them, whatever. They always do something interesting. So again, that's going to be something that'll be pretty funky. To be fair, that'll be quite nice. I think there's an Oris club watch I kind of watched they've done for is it the Arab Watch Club, something of that ilk. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's a pretty good looking thing as well. There's not necessarily always a lot of new releases. It's really just probably the one opportunity that you get to see everything that's kind of come out this year. And in a lot of brands, they launch it and you maybe see an early prototype or an engineering sample, but they're beginning to hit the market now as well. And a lot of the brands that don't go to Watches and Wonders, for example, are there. So pretty much all the independents will be there. So you'll get to see something. You get to see everything in one place, kind of in a really nice, relaxed atmosphere that you'll probably not ever see again put together in one place.
A chance to see the Le Mans Daytona for a lot of Rolex fans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. And Dave, are you going as press, or will you be exhibiting there, or do you have a?
No, we're literally over to just get as much kind of coverage as you can, because the beauty of it is as well, compared to something say like Watches and Wonders, where if you're lucky you can grab a couple of minutes with somebody, and it's just not conducive to recording or doing things there. They've actually got a media suite there with proper recording rooms that you can use to get decent quality content, as opposed to hiding in a corner of a booth that's just in a big PAL exposed, boomy, loud, noisy music playing. It's not conducive to doing it. This is a bit better for kind of getting that coverage, and sometimes having everything in front of you that you can play with at the same time, as opposed to pictures and renders and we've only got one sample of it and you have it for 2 seconds and it's wheeked off somewhere else. So yeah, it's a good place it's a good place in terms of the show and the content of it. Dubai is warm, and I'm not built for warm though, which is always a problem.
Yeah, I've got a friend who lives in Dubai. Yeah, it's I've had friends that lived in the Middle East, like Oman and stuff, and it's brutal, isn't it? I mean, it gets hot here in Florida, but that's a real dry desert heat. Yeah. I've not
It
yet
definitely doesn't get warm here.
No, it's raining at the moment outside here.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think then, is that everything? Oh yeah. Anonymous is asking us the Seiko Astron. I like the Seiko Astrons.
Super. That one he's asking about, if I remember rightly, is that the one that's kind of got is it a octagonal, hexagonal bezel? It's slightly smaller, a little bit more streamlined than some of them have been in the past. Cool watch. Astrons are, I guess they're a victim of their own success. They got all that technology packed in just as the kind of smartwatch thing launched, didn't it? And they've done Astrons for a while, don't get me wrong, but they've got down to a compact, really neat, really nice, tight package now, and it's kind of broadly irrelevant, but I think they're super cool for what they are.
Yeah, it's interesting, is it? Because Casio was just the king of that when I was growing up, wasn't it? It's like, oh, it's got a barometer in it and stuff like that. And now, the new Apple Watch.
But they were always big and they were always chunky. They were cool. Don't get me wrong. They were kind of like they're a bit of something about them, but they were far from subtle or under the cuff type watches. And I think in the last couple of years they've done some really, really good looking watches. And I guess if you buy it just because it's a cool watch, then just they're not pretending to be anything other than super accurate watches, I guess. So yeah, I think they're really cool. Highly recommend it because you see so few of them.
Yeah.
So just on that topic, have you got any predictions for the Anthony Farrer outcome?
So yeah, John T and Tick has asked me about whether it would ever be filmed, but I think if he's federally prosecuted, you can't have. It's rare that or impossible to get cameras into a federal courthouse, is my understanding. Yeah. So we might never know. I mean, it could if he's. So I think they deemed him a flight risk. The rumor allegedly is that he'd applied for a passport, so they obviously had to move. That's why they're denying him bail. So if he's in there, plus I think he was on probation, and he's obviously formally. He's definitely a former offender. He could be there a while, and unless he's got a really, really good lawyer to unpick everything, I guess his defense would be just that what he said on the internet, that hey, this was just the process of doing business. These were business debts that were on the company, and we had payment arrangements to pay this money back. I guess that possibly is the only defense he's got, really, because he hasn't got a defense of, oh, I was misled by this person or that person or whatever, which is usually the defense, isn't it? Oh, it was somebody, I was working on behalf of somebody else.
Yeah, I'm going to guess if he's on whatever they call it. You know, he's been in before and he's out and he's on kind of like he's on the first, second chances. They're going to have to lock him up for breaking that. That's just kind of the system, because that'll happen. I think the likelihood of him having access to money to pay for a properly good lawyer that might actually be able to get him out of trouble is probably slim.
Yeah, it'd have to be probably somebody that he knew, or I mean, because that whole time he was, even I think at the start of the Timepiece Gentleman, he wore an electronic tag, I think, for one of the things.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
probably that's what I was thinking of. Thanks for reminding me. I was like, I couldn't remember the word probation. It was too late for me here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if he's in probate, he's going to they're going to have to lock him up for breaking probation, because judges don't look too kindly on that generally.
No, I think he's got to be, I don't know, 10 to 15 years, I guess, on that. I mean, I don't know how they work.
I don't think he's high enough a profile dude in terms of what he's been up to actually be able to negotiate him well up. He's, broadly speaking, top of that tree. So what can he do? He can pass out a couple of folk below him who have done less than he's done. So it's not, this guy's no mob boss who can give up other mob bosses. He's not that caliber.
Well, and also if the IRS starts sniffing around, and if they
actually, I think they have, because I read that it was a three-way affidavit. It was between FBI, the IRS, and local and state, or whatever it was, level police as well. So they're all after him. So if they're after him, he's got them on his back for life.
Yeah.
It's no joke. It's going up against the IRS. So yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation. I enjoyed his content. I'd invited him on the show once before as well. Just sort of before all this obviously kicked off, because he was always entertaining in interviews. I thought at one time he did have good insights at one time. So, but anyway,
that's the reality, though, isn't it? At the end of the day, there's plenty of bad guys out there who are very charming, and people that, if you have a conversation in the pub with them, you think, oh, you're an okay guy, but I guess you never know behind the scenes, do you?
Yeah, I think he got over his head. I just think he got carried away with it, and it was, the tides were riding with. I mean, I bought it, nothing to do with him, but I bought a load of crypto thinking I was, the master of buying crypto, and then ended up taking a bath on some. But I never overextended myself. I mean, it was a. But anyway,
well, you buy watches, Sam, so you definitely did. Same as everyone else listening to this. That's just a fact.
Yeah. Oh yeah, bought depreciate. Yeah, yeah. I'm wearing a depreciating asset on my wrist. Yeah.
Oh, we're all in that boat, Dave. We're all in that boat.
Yeah, exactly.
So in all seriousness, I feel quite bad for the.
It's a sad situation for everyone, but at the end of the day, I guess if folk are hurt financially or otherwise, that's the ones that you have to think about first and foremost.
Yeah, the one who lost their consignment watches, the one who was owed money, and then also that's a horrendous thing where you get strung along, don't you? And you're like, oh no, next week, and that's an awful, that can really take a toll on somebody. Yeah, I feel really sorry for the victims. Absolutely. Cool. Okay, well, that was great. Well, there'll be no Tuesday show. I'm traveling again, but I should be back I will be back for next Sunday for the Sunday social. We won't be talking about this subject again, but I just thought we'd everybody else
get it out of the way, get out of the system.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks everyone for being so active in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.